All right, team, are we ready? Here we go.
We're ready.
Ready as we'll ever be.
So, welcome to Coach's Corner. This is where a team of Petra coaches get together every week to answer your questions. Some of these have been submitted from people who are joining us today, or a lot of times these are situations or questions that come up as we are coaching some of our member companies, and we're going to discuss them today. So, you're going to hear a lot of different perspectives and opinions and experiences from each of us, so that should be fun. I'm Jennifer Fott. I'm a certified scaling up coach and Petra coach, and joining me today are Mark Comiso and JT Terrell. Guys, you want to introduce yourself?
Take it, Mark.
All right, JT, thank you very much. Mark Comiso here out on the West Coast, out in San Francisco, where it's a little bit smoggy and foggy today. But here, certified Petra coach for 2.5 years now, and been using scaling up in my businesses for over 20 years. JT, over to you.
Thank you, man. My name is JT Terrell. I am a certified Petra coach. I just had my 4-year anniversary, which makes me an old schooler around here. And if you see or hear anything weird behind me, there are 6 children going to virtual school on the other side of this brick wall. So pay no attention to the random sounds and sights. Just keep an eye out for kids and random dogs running through here, and it should be a lot of fun.
There's no Zoom sessions these days without random kids or animals running through, JT. So you're just fulfilling that.
I will. No problem. I'm here to play that role.
Maybe we should play bingo like we did at Petra Academy a couple of weeks ago. Virtual bingo. Like that one.
That would have been but next time, next Wednesday.
All right. Okay, so make sure that you are aware that there is a Q&A and a chat box. So if you're joining us live, and I'll remind you, the people joining us throughout the call today, make sure you're putting your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to get those answered. We love a good curveball around here, so throw anything at us that you have. All right, so some of the questions that Mark and JT and I discussed to get us kicked off is, Mark, I'm gonna go to you first. You talked about balance in our prep call. Where do you think we'll end up balancing out as far as virtual versus in-person activities, such as like sales calls, meetings, that sort of thing? What does the virtual environment look like moving forward into 2021?
You know, it's funny because, you know, how many times have we all heard the, work-life balance, right? That's all what we've heard in the past. Now you hear, balance as in, what's going to be virtual, what's going to be in person. I think much like that term work-life balance it isn't really valid or true, right? It's not one thing over another, right? I talk about and work with members about work-life integration. I think it's going to be the same thing. I think that, as we all come into what is the new normal, it's not an old or new, it's, this is just new normal coming forward. I think it is going to be an integration of, we've now become aware of and accustomed to how Zoom and technology can benefit us. And I think what it'll do is allow us the distance between in-person meetings will be a little bit longer because we can fill that with some technology and some, virtual stuff. But at the same time, I think we all have seen through, how many Zoom calls do we do a day now that, the virtual doesn't solve all of the challenges. You have to get in person and see somebody, shake hands every once in a while, or bump elbows until we get a vaccination. But we're going to have that, integration of how do we do things virtually in between and then get together on a periodic basis. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah. JT, what do you think?
I read an article, this is going to be weird, but imagine coming from me, it's weird, but it will all come back together. I read an article years ago where somebody was asking Bono about when they, from the group U2, when they switched over from Joshua Tree and those kinds of albums to Achtung Baby. They were on the Zoo TV tour. Mark, you remember. Jennifer, you're way too young to remember that. And they asked him, hey, you're using so many more loops and computers and all of these synthesizers and stuff. Aren't you worried that you're going to lose the feeling of the songs? And Bono said the more they rely on the machines for the stuff the machines can do, the more the human parts become more important. His voice, the lyrics, those kinds of things. Same thing for business, I feel like. We got machines who are going to do things for us that we couldn't do, don't want to do. They're going to do it better. It's going to allow the human beings and the organizations to do the parts that only humans can do really, really well, which is why I think this idea of soft skills, emotional intelligence, whatever you want to call it, it's going to become more and more and more important. The people who are really good at those things will be the rock stars moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I don't think that this virtual thing is temporary. I think we'll slowly start going back to in-person meetings, and many already have. And I think in the future, you're going to have to be aware of what that new process looks like, right? So on every month or twice a month, we have a Petro Forum group call that member leaders from the organizations we coach get to come together and help each other solve problems. And we just had one, you know, yesterday. I think that was yesterday or Tuesday. I don't know what day it is anymore, but we had one on Tuesday. And one of the questions was, you know, I am having trouble getting selling virtually. You know, what types of tips can you offer for you know, when we're not doing in-person meetings, when our clients aren't ready for that? And I think this goes hand in hand with the question about the balance of in-person versus virtual. You know, most people in sales are used to that in-person, driving to the client, the big presentation type of selling. And it's harder to create connections that way, or not hard. I say different. I shouldn't say it's harder. It's just different. And, you know, I think part of that is we have to realize that our process has to change, and the mindset's the enemy here, right? So things are going to go back to normal, aren't going to go back to normal. So what do you need to do to change how you're doing virtual meetings, how you're doing virtual selling? How do you need to adjust your sales cycle or your sales process? What ground rules need to change? You know, expectations on how you're dressing virtually, what your lighting looks like virtually, where you are when you have these virtual meetings and calls. And going back to just how you're driving value internally to your team and externally to the clients that you're selling to, and make it an experience in the virtual world as well. You know, like we tend to just jump on Zoom and just start talking business, right? Instead of the pleasantries and the personal stuff that really good salespeople are great at to build connections with people before they jump into the sales part of it. So I think this is going to be both for selling, both for internal meetings, whatever that looks like. It's going to require us to be more intentional. We're going to have to be more strategic and more deliberate, you know, than we have before when it comes to those things and finding that balance.
One other thing that I just want to, sorry, one other thing I just want to jump in on. I think about old schoolers, right? I think about the grumpiest of the grumpy old men of all time is my dad, right? And if he was sitting here, he would agree. 77-year-old former captain of the Marine Corps. I mean, like, he's an old school dude. And he was also an old school regional sales director who would go out and fly places to shake hands and create relationship. And even he mentioned to me the other day on the phone that he feels like all that's over, and that even people like him, old schoolers, they're much more open to this new way of reaching them. So we might as well just walk through the door. In fact, the door may never not be open again, right? Like, you know, the window might close if we don't get used to doing this now. So being flexible in those kinds of things, I think, are probably important. Sorry, Mark, for jumping on there.
No, I think that's the fun of these coaches corners, right? Is because we all see and hear different things that, you know, I was going to, you know, kind of tag on a little bit, Jennifer, to what you were saying. And I think it is kind of Darwinism at its best, right? It's not the strongest that survive. It's the ones that adapt the best that survive. And this is about, to your point, you know, we're going to have to change mindsets, you know, our own first and then others with us. And, you know, going along with you, JT, of, you know, there's going to be some people, you know, that may be curmudgeon-y old, you know, sales folks or other people who are like, you know, I just want it to be the way it was. There's a lot of things we can want, but that doesn't change the reality of where we're at, right? And I think it's about how do we, you know, get better at adapting and seeing that as opportunity, right? Not seeing it as a negative, but seeing it as this is a great opportunity for us to, as you said, Jennifer, to think about our processes, think about our products and services. You know, I argue, I'm an old marketing guy, but I argue that I don't think there's been a better time in 100 years for brands and products to be reaching out to customers and just saying, here's who we are, here's what we are, because people are now kind of in this new space of, everything's wide open. So again, adapt, see it as an opportunity, not oh crap, I got to do this, right? I just think it's a mindset. I think you're absolutely right, Jonathan.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, Mark. I love it when people tell me I'm right. So, okay, I brought up sales a little bit. So I want to go back to another question that JT, you brought up earlier today, is about sales compensation. So, things are a lot more unknown right now. Salespeople are maybe requesting higher commission. Many are looking for more stability, maybe a higher base salary. What are the companies that you guys are working with doing about this? JT, you want to start with that one?
What I see what I see them tempted to do is this is, thoughts and opinions reflected or JT's and nobody else's. What I see them doing is being afraid of losing people. So tempted to give them more base salaries, change their comp and that kind of thing, because the perception is that it's harder right now. When the flip side of what Mark just said is it might be easier. You all know my wife is a hardcore old school salesperson who drives and builds sales organizations internationally. Never in a million years would she be in favor of increasing people's base salaries. Any good hunters, rather than farmers, any real hunters, they don't care about that. They don't, maybe, yeah, insurance is great. They're not looking for $100,000 base. They'll take 32 in insurance and they will crush you on the on-target earnings if there's no ceiling. That's the kind of people that you want. So, of course, living with her has kind of given me that lens to look through, but I can't look at it any other way at this point.
I think organizations, when it comes to sales right now, is we have to be really clear on how we measure value creation. From an employee standpoint, from a salesperson standpoint. So identifying and communicating how profits are attributable to the contributions of our people, right? So not just existing as goodwill or assets as employees, but defining what that looks like in this new difficult economic climate, because it probably has changed. I think we just have to be really clear with what that is and what the impact is on their roles. So determining that right balance between like guaranteed and incentive comp based off of like short-term and long-term pay or commission is going to be important to find that balance. And then, you can create some flexibility for yourself in that as well from a cash flow perspective when cash flow or profitability is hard to predict or lower than you expected. So you may want to look at something like that when you're looking at, are we incentivizing on longer term plans or in value creation versus adjusting someone's base pay? Mark, I know you have some thoughts on this.
Well, I think, you guys both had really good points, right? I really, we are going to have to be flexible and look at things. I think as leaders, our job is to be open-minded, if you will. At the same time, I do agree with JT is that, as a leader, and if I'm looking at, I think about my sales, organizations or the group sales teams in my companies in the past. Yeah, I want those hunters, right? Those, an old friend of mine wrote a book on it, and he says, there's tigers, there's horses, and there's dogs as far as salespeople. And the tigers are the ones that, go out there and they just, get anything and everything, right? And you want that. You want that tiger out there doing it. And tigers don't, expect to just get all the food. They're going to go get it. At the same time, I think it's important as leaders that we understand that, we do have to adapt given all the changes that are going on and be open to that. And I do think it's important that we don't, treat every salesperson, every situation exactly the same. Some people may have situations. A salesperson may be a true hunter, but they just have something that's, a parent or something that's really sick and they need to make sure that they're, covering costs of stuff. So I think as leadership, it's important for us to look for that, hunger, but also understand if the request comes in to, maybe have a higher base to see what it's about. If it's just about, they're just like, well, I just don't trust the times, right? That might be a little different than, hey, I've got a sick parent and I really need to make sure that I'm covering medical costs or something else. And how you go about that, is it higher base? Is it, us as an organization working to say, hey, we'll support you on that or whatever it is. I think that's the, where true leadership comes in, rather than just, saying, oh, it should be higher base or higher commission or whatever it is. It's about flexibility, I think.
Yeah, flexibility keeps coming up, right? And there's a little bit of an emotional intelligence involved with that style of leadership too. And I agree, like good people have the skills to perform, and they also need to understand the outcomes that are most critical for them. So they know, like, what am I responsible for? What impact does it have on the company? And how am I going to be rewarded for that so that I can meet those expectations? So we did have a question. Go ahead, JT.
Sorry, last thing I wanted to throw in there, and you guys both kind of jogged something in my memory, particularly when I had the tin company and I had a bullpen full of farmers, right? Love them to death. They had all the contacts in the industry and all these people who they brought to the table initially, which was great. After a while, though, those were not their contacts, they were mine. And new business, new accounts is what I was really into. And so new accounts paid more. Because once we won the business and we performed at a high level, that was my account, not theirs anymore. It wasn't their book of business, it was ours. So it might be, to y'all's point, if people are, and you're right, good people worth their weight in gold. And people are going through a lot of stress and stuff. And let's be honest, to be a great hunter and a great salespeople, you must be emotional, right? You probably have some, oh boy, there's a podcast, This American Life. If you ever get a chance, go listen to the one that's entitled Cars. They embedded with a car dealership, a Jeep dealership in New Jersey for a month, and it's the most fascinating thing. And they talk about the most successful salesperson month over month over month over month suffered from the delusion that he was never going to lose a sale. And when he did lose the sale, it was the client's fault. It was never him. But that's, to be a great hardcore tiger, that has to be the mindset. And it's hard to maintain with COVID and all this crazy stuff going on. So yes, let's be sensitive to the people. Don't let tigers go.
That's right. Okay, question from the chat box from Alejandro. So he said, we are having trouble recruiting lead carpenters for a construction company in Pittsburgh. What do you know about retained employee search consultants? Do you think this might work for us? Who's going to take it first? JT. Yeah, it's in your world, man.
He's a construction guy.
They're pointing at me because I've got I work with a lot of production home builders and a custom home builder and a bunch of vertical heavy construction guys, right? So this is the stuff we talk about all the time. Doing search firms for lead carpenters, I've never seen that work. They use search firms, particularly, for executives and stuff like that. Almost exclusively, lead carpenter searches are going to come from personal referrals. Although the thing I have seen work for those guys who've gotten really creative, there's nothing, and Alejandro, I think was the name, there's nothing that says you have to recruit people there locally. I mean, you guys should, and you could and should, particularly where you are in Pittsburgh. I've done some work in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've done some work in Philly, right outside of Philly. There are plenty of areas, quote unquote Rust Belt areas that some of that industrial stuff has gone by the wayside. There's a lot of talented, skilled people looking for an opportunity, and they would definitely move to Pittsburgh if the right opportunity was there. So I think instead of paying somebody to probably reach people you could reach on your own, I think it might just be putting together a little coalition of folks inside of your organization who are going to do some real outboard recruiting, probably a little further from home than you've thought of. And you might have to move some people, and you might have to pay them a move bonus and stuff like that. And it might be the best thing that you ever did. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to say, JT, I think that you hit the nail on the head with this one, in that, there's an old Henry Ford saying that said, that says most opportunities are missed because they're dressed up in overalls as work, right? And, the reality is you're going to have to work a little bit at it probably. I do think that there's some great recruiting approaches that you can take. I agree with you that reaching out past the zone of where you may think is a good way, JT, right now it's unprecedented times. People are looking for opportunities. And so how can you get, Alejandro, how can you get the word out that you are looking? Some of it may be that, hey, I love this approach. I've used it in the past with some of the people that I brought in to my organizations, but going out to competitive companies where somebody's really good. So if, Alejandro, if you know somebody who's a lead carpenter, maybe working for somebody else, that person may not be looking for a job, quote unquote. But if you happen to know them, reaching out to them and just saying, hey, I know you do great carpentry work. You're a great lead for XYZ company. We're looking for other people. We're looking to bring on someone like yourself. Would you happen to know anybody? And I have had that person that I reached out to come back to me and say, if you're looking, I might be interested. And if not, then they may put you on to somebody else. So things like that. How can you be creative in putting the message out to people that are in that sphere, right, of carpentry leads that can help you find them either locally or outside the local area? Be creative.
Yeah, I think this could be a really easy critical number for Q4 or for the month to encourage your employees to refer or help you recruit new people. I mean, nobody knows better what it's like to work for you and how great of an environment it is if you than the people who work within your organization, right? It's easier for them to sell it than it is for an outsourced organization. And it could be an incentive program that you put together from a referral standpoint to encourage your team members to cast the net wide and bring in some more referrals to work.
The only thing I'm gonna add real quick on this is that I want to kind of play devil's advocate a little to the other side for Alejandro and say that, hey, if you don't have the time or energy, if the business is just booming and you don't, you can't get out there, you can't reach out, you just, you're kind of, the reason that you go to a recruiter is because you don't have the cycles to be able to recruit and do that. My communication on that would be is just make sure you're working with somebody who's maybe incentivized in the same way you are. Which I mean is if you're going to go to a recruiter and use somebody else, essentially you're trading money for time, your time, right? And instead of is maybe more valuable put to other things. Just make sure that recruiter is incentivized to get you, on the successful completion, right? Not on the work to get there, but on the successful completion of bringing in a lead carpenter, and that lead carpenter stays for more than 90 days or whatever that is, so that, they're not incentivized to just spin their wheels and give you spit out names, but really find you the right type of lead carpenter that meets your requirements. If they align with that and, and it makes sense, okay, maybe. You've heard, differing perspectives, but that's a possibility. Yeah,
I mean, I like to say, look for outcomes, not hours, right? Outcomes, not number of resumes you've had to look at, because that's a waste of time too, right? Okay, so once those people get here, I'll do my best news anchor transition phrase, right? So once they get to your organization, how should we be managing performance in a new remote work environment? Any thoughts there, JT?
I'll throw it out there and I'll say it's easier now than it was 7 months ago. Only because imagine you're in a work environment, you're in an office, and you're face to face with people and you've never been very good at holding each other accountable, which nobody is. And you're not good at performance reviews because nobody is, and people just don't do it, which is why the three of us go in and they're able to help people, which is good. And people would take it very personally if you went around checking up behind them to make sure that they were hitting their key performance indicators or they were getting their stuff done. Now that it's virtual, chances are the technology you're using has built-in reports you can just run anyway. And because you're not sitting right there looking at each other, it's much easier, I think, to ask the question, hey, Jennifer, what'd you get done today? Give me a quick update. Mark, now let me share what I did. What did we learn from it? And we go. I think the door is wide open for performance management in a way it's never been before. And I'm just hoping more people will step through it, embrace it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because the way that we are working has evolved, we have to approach how we measure performance management different as well. We have to approach it differently. So, I think as we slowly go back to in-person work, many of us will continue to have more longer-term remote teams working. So those systems and processes that were designed for in-person work may not best serve your your team now. So we have to have a process or build a process that, works for everyone, whether they're back in the office, whether they're working in shifts, no matter where they are, and not just for face-to-face. They have to be resilient, and we have to be able to adjust and flex, right? So thinking about how we can stay relevant is important. And two, I think, like you were saying, JT, people might take it weirdly when they feel like you're kind of looking over their shoulder, right? It's really easy for us to say, well, I don't see that person as much. So we just subconsciously, we just think they're not productive because we're not seeing their face as often. And so that's because of this virtual remote environment. So we can't replicate what we used to do and just take it online and just say, like, this is how we do it now, we just do it virtually. I think thinking through, like, what do you need and how do we best deliver it, and for it to fit both a remote worker and an in-person worker is going to be important. And I'll say this again, because I think it fits here. We're looking for outcomes, not hours, right? So being flexible about that is important. Mark, anything to add?
Well, I was going to say, once again, you're right, Jennifer. I was going to say that outcomes, not hours, right? I do think that it's, JT, I think you're absolutely right. I think that we now have an opportunity as leaders and organizations to say, hey, you know what, given our, that we're not in a physical location together, we do need to stay connected. And part of staying connected is knowing, who's working on what and when and how we fit together, right? Again, go back to that integration type of thing. And part of that is we all need to, use systems that allow us to do this. I think that it will actually benefit down the road. If we had a lot of companies that we go into, the three of us go into, and the rest of the Petra coaches go into, if they were looking to implement a system like this in the past, people were very, they were like, why are you doing this? Is that a weird thing? Are you micromanaging me? Whereas now, again, it's this open sheet of paper. It's like, hey, we are in a new world, we're in a new time, and this is what we're doing now as we're virtual. And then when we come back together, I think, again, it goes back to that first question. I don't think we're ever going to go back to all of us sitting in an office, in our cubes, all this. We're going to have some people that are in, some people that are out, all that. So these systems, these new systems will be the way that we communicate and move our work and our company and our organization and our culture and all of that forward. So I don't think it'll be looked at weirdly. I think, JT, again, you're right. People just be like, oh, what are the systems we're going to use? And as leaders, if what we say is, hey, this is how we get better, this is how we do better, if we say and communicate the positivity of it, then our organization will see that too. If we go in with our tails tucked and say, oh gosh, we got to do this and we got to do, the attitude, the culture, everything comes from the top down, see this again as an opportunity to learn, grow, scale.
Yeah, I think, the work that we do supports that flexibility, right? So, and it supports that performance management, and not like in like a big brother, like a micromanaging way. So, when we use things like daily huddles and weekly huddles. So as you shift into these new systems, revisit what those meeting rhythms look like and make sure that they're productive and that they are made a priority in the organization. Make sure you're understanding what people are working on and that they're working on the right things and that they're working together as a team, because that collaboration is what I think most organizations are missing, because that used to happen in person. So, making sure that that team environment is still there through those meeting rhythms, asking really great questions, being really curious from a coaching standpoint, not an accountability standpoint necessarily. And I think, again, it just goes back to this like whole team mindset. Yeah.
I had a conversation with a business leader the other day, and kind of this same thing was coming up. There was somebody who he works closely with, who he felt like he needed, the word came up, micromanage. He mentioned to me, he said, I have to micromanage this guy. I said, all right. And then I had a separate conversation with the guy, and the guy said, well, I just feel like dude feels like he needs to micromanage me. So I brought them together, and I said, hold on a second. I said, you told me you felt like you need to micromanage him. And of course, this was very uncomfortable for everybody except me. And the guy, he was like, yeah. And the guy said, and you don't want to be micromanaged by him. You don't think that you should have to be. And he said, no. I said, let me just tell you, if he feels like he has to micromanage you, he does. I said, the way to alleviate it is to proactively provide him with this stuff we're just talking about. This is what you're doing every day. These are the outcomes, not hours, but outcomes. The more you do that, the less he'll feel like he has to micromanage you. And then guess what? Just the second he doesn't feel like he has to, he'll stop doing it. He doesn't want to micromanage you. And so if anybody watching this video, the takeaway could be, if you're doing performance management, awesome. If you're not, now's the time to start. And if people begin to push back, they're probably pushing back because they're a little bit defensive about being managed. And you have to rip that off like a Band-Aid. Yes, I feel like I need to manage you, but here's the good part. If I didn't think I could trust you to work from home, I would fire you. You know what I mean? Like, I can trust you. I just want you to provide me with some of this info. And it's going to be great. And if we ever are in the office together again, it'll be even better. We'll have this open communication. So that was a little bit of a sticky conversation the other day that ended up really, really good. At least for now. We'll see how it goes.
That's awesome.
Well, and JT, I think the only thing that I might add on to what you're saying is that I think in leadership, and I do think, you know, the words matter, right? Is I think as leaders, if we communicate that, you know, it's not providing me with this information, right? So providing the, like you said, the things that are going, it's providing the organization, right? These are the things we need as an organization that's growing and thriving to, you know, be able to do the work and the great work that we do so we can all keep doing it, right? If we make it as, hey, this is the system, right? The system of, you know, Acme company, whatever it is, whatever your company is that we provide this information in so that we can continue to be really good. We can work together, all of that. I think if we take out the, hey, give it to me, that feels like micromanaging, right? If it's me that has to do it, I totally agree with you that, you know, when I don't feel like that is when we'll stop. But if we say, hey, the system is the thing that needs it, I think it changes the perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point. We had a question come in.
Well said. Well said.
We had a question come in, sort of dovetails into this conversation about, you know, bonus systems, right? And rewarding that work. What are proven ways to implement a bonus system in the company that makes everyone accountable and encourages teamwork? Anybody want to run with that one?
I think you said it best so far, Jen, right? Which is outcomes, not hours, right? So bonus systems, you know, we need to build those systems such that the outcome is the thing that gets bonused, not the effort, right? We can put a lot of effort in. I had an old business partner and I who, you know, we had a saying, it got to be funny, but at the time it wasn't very funny, where, you know, we'd walk around and, you know, we had, you know, an organization where everybody's like, we are so busy, right? And they give that answer all the time. We are so busy. I was like, gosh, if I hear busy one more time, right? Because I was looking at the gross margin part of this, and I was like, yeah, there's a lot of hours being put forward, but they're not billable hours, right? And so bonusing, I think, needs to be on the outcome. What is the outcome that you're looking to drive and reach? And if we do as an organization, if we do as an individual, or maybe as we do as a department, then there could be, you know, a return for everyone. And it may be different. You know, it's crazy. I had, you know, my previous life was in, you know, marketing and design agencies, and everybody's like, well, how do you bonus designers, right? If it's a good design, if they win an award. And, you know, Jennifer, you come from that world too. And what we figured out was it wasn't about that. It was about, you know, how many times did they get the client, the customer, to come back and accept their, you know, first or second round of design, instead of it being 3 or 4 or 5 times, right? And that was about productivity, or outcome versus productivity. And what we figured out too was that, unlike salespeople, designers didn't want to get bonused in cash. You know what they wanted? They wanted the newest Apple monitor. That was the cool thing. So I was like, all right, if you know, meet this certain criteria, if all of you meet a certain, you know, average of how many times the customer accepts your design before this round or whatever, then you all get monitors. And they worked harder to understand the customer, what it was, so they got it the first or second time versus 10 times. But, you know, the bonus plan I had as a leader had to figure that out. Part of it is there's no, you know, one size fits all bonus program. Got to be outcome based for organization, department, individual, maybe all.
Yeah. JT, you have something to share?
Mark, you hit the nail on the head. Very first thing is people need to understand what, first of all, good Lord, I was working with this one company and people were mad about not getting bonuses. Oh, we always get bonuses. I was like, well, first of all, why do you always get bonuses? Because I'm looking at I'm looking at your financials and you ain't always profitable. Bonus comes out of profit, number one. Does everybody understand that? But like 100 people, raise your hand if you understand that bonuses come out of profit. It's not just something you get for being around for 365 days, right? Okay, they get that. Hey, and look at our financials for the last X amount of years. We have been barely profitable. By the way, simple numbers says 10% is life support if we want to have a lot of cash and that kind of, great. All right, so our goal for this year is 16%. You guys are the ones, whether you're in sales or operations or what design or whatever, like y'all the ones who can make this happen. When we hit this, anything over and above it, I will share with you straight up. And I don't care if it's 70% profit and I'm stroking everybody checks for $10,000. It'll be, I'll do it I'll do it at Caesar's Palace. Like, I don't care, but being transparent with this number and letting people know what's expected. People, and half the time, and forget about it. I don't care if it's a home builder, warehouse, and people making widgets, or a startup app. Most people have no concept of ultimate net profit in their organization. And if they did, it would change everything they do every day. Jen?
Yeah, I've turned around to pull this book off of my shelf. This is a dear friend of mine's new book. It's called Lunch with Lucy. Her name's Sherry Deutschman. Highly, highly recommend this book. It talks about how she built a profit sharing system within her organization that was incredible. The results were incredible. The culture turned out to be incredible. What she ended up doing was being, like you said, JT, incredibly transparent about where they stood from the numbers of the business, what their profitability needed to be. And if they hit that certain profitability level, they received bonus checks and a profit sharing system based off of tenure. And so if you had been there, 16 years, some people were getting like 5-figure bonus checks, and the first time she did it, the bonus checks were not that big, but as time went on, and as they built this culture of, of just really caring for their people, taking care of their people, making sure that everybody was focused on the right numbers and the right KPIs across the entire organization, and everybody knew exactly how they could support that. It really did incredible things for her company here in Nashville. But yeah, highly suggest this book. It's got a lot of more fun facts in there too.
And I hadn't heard of that one, Jennifer. I love it. Now I've got a little daughter named Lucy, so I gotta love that one for sure.
That's fun.
JT, yeah, lunch with Lucy. I'd love to have lunch with Lucy every day.
Little known
JT,
fact, Mark. I also have a daughter named Lucy. My daughter Claire's first name is Lucy. So it's a fun fact.
Learn something new every day. You've been around for a while. Something that when you put the 16% up, JT, it reminded me of when we put a bonus system in at one of my agencies, and I will share with people that, I lived I had people every Christmas going, where's my bonus? Right? To your point, it's like, well, this just doesn't come automatically. And it frustrated me and my two business partners. And we literally sat down that break between Christmas and New Year saying, how do we, correct this or bring them more in line? And what we did was we made it very simple. We showed people this where we had, monthly, we said, okay, we have to hit a certain, amount, a line, if you will, that is expenses of the organization. And then above that, we're going to have a little bit of area of rainy day fund, right? We're going to put some money aside so that we can have it for the future. And then anything above that, we will bonus everybody on, right? So we made it simple. It's another way to do it is to say, hey, as an organization, we have a body of expenses monthly. We have to cover that. If we don't, no bonuses. And we're going to put a little bit of, we've got to put something into, the savings account so that, now we can all say in the future, if we ever have a pandemic again, which is crazy, but we have to have some money aside so that we're, putting something into savings. And then above that, we will do a bonus program. You may do that based on, different things, whatever it is, your role, your position, how long you've been with the company, you can set up different things. But JT, you're absolutely right, is that everybody needs to know clearly okay, if we do get this bonus, how is it being distributed? What is the, calculation? Keep it simple, because the more you make it complex, the more people will be all over the place, and, expectations won't meet reality.
And I don't know what Sherry did in that book there. Just from personal experience, people who have seen set them up, the more often that you can bonus, the more activity it's going to drive. So if you can do it quarterly, bonus people quarterly. If you could do it monthly, bonus them monthly. Profitable month, cool, we just closed the books, here's your profit, bam, right? That'll just reinforce stuff, because the end of the year rolls around, there's too much, the holidays or whatever. You as a company, you're wanting to close your books out. And just the more, if you're instituting some kind of a profit sharing or any kind of a bonus thing quarterly, I think is a good rhythm to keep you honest and to see the effects of it quicker.
Absolutely.
And I think, JT, you hit, again, words matter. I think it's really important as an organization, we talk about this is a bonus, or not a bonus, but a profit sharing, right? Use the word profit. It's out of profit, right? We have to be profitable. If we're not, then there is no sharing. Profit sharing, and we all
completely. And too many people have been too lenient for a long time. People just expect bonuses, and that's just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, this goes all back to education, right? There are a lot of people in organizations that don't understand how the numbers of a business work, and you can make it, like you said, Mark, really simple to show them. Like someone shared with me earlier today that the owner passed $1 around the room and said, this is for every dollar that comes into this organization, and he passed a dime around the room and said, I get this much, and that's the profit. And that profit goes back here to have a rainy day fund, to have opportunity cash on hand, and to buy new things that pop up, like a new computer or something like that aren't in the budget. And I really don't think people understand that. A lot of business owners may not fully understand it sometimes, right? You just get into business and we're like, what?
And I think that's why. People don't understand it, because lots of owners don't have a full holistic understanding, and they don't want to admit to their coach, or definitely to their employees, that they don't have a good understanding of that stuff. And if they would just kind of fall on the sword, admit they don't know what they don't know, and then learn at the same time as their employees, man. Talk about a powerful, humbling thing to do for a group of people. It's pretty awesome. When I've seen people do it, and I say seen people doing it, when I was the one learning at the same time as my employees what profitability meant, what it really took, what we had to make monthly, how to do bonuses and stuff, it lasted forever.
Hey, so that's a good segue into our next question that we received in the Q&A. In a simple way, so going back to simple, please explain the best way to track and maximize positive cash flow.
Well, I did a little homework on this today. So if anybody, listen, if we're talking about a simple way without busting out the abacus and a couple of books and phoning David Pierce, who's one of our friends, who's another coach, there's a software now called Cash Flow Story. Which is really well done. If I were a small business owner, I work with small to medium-sized businesses, right? I have a subscription to Cash Flow Story. It's only asking you for about 18 data points, all of which are in your financials. It's not like a bunch of complicated stuff. All you really need to do is feed it into this software, and this software will begin to help you understand and produce cash flow statements for you. So if we're talking about a simple, without actually explaining cash flow, if you want to have a simple way to have some visibility into it, I would get Cash Flow Story, and I would just start playing with it today. And they've even got people who you can, they've got tutors and stuff who you can lean on if you don't have a coach to help you through it.
Yeah, that's something that we offer our members, that we walk them through Cash Flow Story. And what's the cool part about it is in people who know this book, Scaling Up, and they know the Rockefeller Habits, what we help organizations implement is part of that is the power of one, right? So if you just increased or decreased AR, accounts receivable, by 1 day, what impact does it have on your cash flow? If you increased accounts payable by 1 day, what impact does it have? Little things like that, decreasing overhead, increasing volume, raising your price, and you're literally able to see how just 1% or 1 day changes the cash flow in your organization. And then you can slowly start to make those changes. I think cash flow can be like feel very complicated, and that system just makes it so easy to say, man, if I just made this one change by one day or 1%, it seems so small, but you can see where the impacts are within the organization. Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, the question is a simple way to, please explain the best way to track and maximize positive cash flow, right? The crazy part is you said something earlier, Jennifer, is that, or JT, I can't remember exactly, but is that most business owners can't even tell you whether they're profitable or not profitable. That's the crazy part to me. I always, say start with the simple level first. Don't feel like you have to go get a PhD in cash flow, right? To understand there's tools out there like the cash flow story, awesome one. It really, really is good. But start out as a leader in an organization, even with the basics. I'm going to go to the basic chart. You've got income and expenses. Income's in green, expenses are in red, right? I will tell you, the number of times I've gone into organizations and they can't tell me that. What was the inflow of money and the outflow of money on a monthly basis? That is, at its essence, that is cash flow. You do have to then take into consideration how quickly you're paying vendors and how quickly people are getting money back to you, right? That's your AR and AP time, but the software does that. If you as a leader will get simple with it, what's coming in on a monthly basis, what's going out, what checks came in, what checks went out. Make it that simple, and then get the software to help you understand a little bit more of the intricacies of the timing of it. And that's how you start to get a handle on and do a better job of understanding what your cash flow is.
Right. I think it can be as simple as you got to just dig in, roll your sleeves up, and have your accountant, whether it's an outsourced fractional CFO or a bookkeeper or controller within your organization, sending you a daily or a weekly cash flow statement. So you can literally understand the inflows and outflows of it and know the ins and outs, no pun intended, of your cash flow and your profit, right? JT?
Last thing, I as I looked through that question, it said, and maximize. So almost exclusively, if you are taking the time to watch this Coach's Corner, then you are, you're wanting to develop, you're wanting to get better, you're learning, you're asking questions, and that's great. I can infer from that you probably have not priced your product high enough, right? So I don't know you, don't know your product. If you're taking the time to be on this call, I think you should raise your prices by 5% today, and you should also shorten the amount of time it takes people to pay you. By even the power of one, by this much. If it's 30 days net, cut it to 20 or 15. If it's 15 days, cut it to 5. If they pay cash on demand, get them to pay ahead of time. Like, that will flip over the cash flow story almost immediately. So that's some stuff you could do to goose your cash flow before you even fully understand it. Raise your prices, get paid faster, and that ain't rocket science. That's just something you could go do.
And JT, I'm gonna tack on and jump on with you there into that bandwagon. Is, I've said this to hundreds, if not thousands, of business owners that I've had the pleasure of being in front of and working with, which is, I'm just like you in that statement. Is like, I don't know who all you all are out there in Facebook and Zoom land as we're doing this, but I can guarantee you that you're not charging enough. That's just universal. And part of it comes from one of the things that I figured out over time is that as a founder of companies, I've built companies just as Jennifer and JT have as well. All the Petra coaches are founders of businesses. So we have sat in your seats. When we speak of these things and share, it really is from our experiences as well as the things that we've seen. But one of the things I found to be universally true is that people who, are founders or early participants in an organization is we have a skill and a knowledge about something, and that's why we brought it to the world. The challenge is it seems easy to us. And because it seems easy to us, we don't think we should charge a higher price because to me, that's easy. I'm not going to charge anybody that much. It's easy. But you know what, gang? The people that are listening, that are learning and growing, to your customers, you're doing something that is impossible to them. That's why they come to you. So charging a little bit more, to your point, JT, charging 5% or 10% more, when you really think about how much that is, you're not going to lose, a lot of your customers over a 5 or 10% change. Yet when you put it into the cash flow story and see what it does to your, top line, and then when you apply the gross margin to it, when it comes down to the bottom line, it can have a huge impact. And it's all around what our mindset is. That's easy to me, so I shouldn't charge too much. That's not true. It's incredibly valuable to your customers. That's what you have to see. What's the value to your customers, and charge appropriately for what the value is to them, not to you.
Agreed.
Amen. Okay, speaking of tools, CRM tools. We have a question that says, I'm in a $4.5 million design company that's growing. Well, it was until COVID, but only down 10%. And now I'm seeing it start to come back. Is Salesforce the right or the best CRM tool to use to grow? JT, I'm coming to you with this one.
I mean, look, listen, there's a reason why Salesforce is Salesforce. I mean, it's pretty damn awesome. You can get it to do just about whatever you want to, and you can bend it to your will. It's also, fairly expensive depending on how many people you have using it and what you're using it for. A lot of people love HubSpot because it's incredibly versatile, and it fits right into your whole CEO plan. You can run everything out of it. I'm not a big, I'm not a honk for it. Of course, keep in mind, I'm working with all these construction guys, right? So they don't have traditional CRMs. Their idea of a CRM is their construction software. It all has a CRM embedded in it. All I know, listen, I'm going to go from experience, and I watch my brilliant wife choose CRMs for the companies who she is spinning up, and it's Salesforce every time, and it will be until somebody makes something better.
So,
What do you think, Jennifer?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. If that's okay. I think things are trending beyond just a CRM, and that is where Salesforce has a ton of new plugins and add-ons that aren't just a CRM, right? There are a lot of systems that are integrating beyond just customer management to marketing and beyond. Systems that include internal notifications, workflows, automation from an operations standpoint, and it's not just a sales tool. So sort of piggybacking on JT, it's not just about, I think people think of a CRM as just a sales and marketing tool. And there are systems out there that can be integrated across your entire business, like a HubSpot or an Infusionsoft with add-ons and some customizations that can automate and that can increase your productivity across the organization, because everybody's running off the same system instead of I'm using Slack over here, I'm using Trello over here, I'm using Asana over here in this team, and then, the sales team has Salesforce and none of it's talking to each other, right? I think the key is to find something that where all of your systems can talk to each other, so everybody's using the same data, the same information, and automating from an operational standpoint as much as possible.
So I'm going to riff off of both of you and take a little different approach too. I'm going to throw out a plug for a good friend of all of ours in the organizations, which is Jack Daly, who does a lot of talking on sales and sales groups and organizations. If you've never seen Jack speak, run out and find out where he's going to be and go see him. He's got more energy than people, 1/3 his age, and he's got some great thoughts and approaches on sales. I've seen him do this a number of times, and it's fantastic because somebody asks this all the time in his sales, what CRM tool should we build? He's like, I got the answer. I got the best one for you, and he gets energized and engaged, and he's like, get a piece of paper out, write this down. It's going to be the best information. Everybody's got their paper. They're ready. And he looks around. He's like, the best CRM tool in the world is the one that you'll frickin' use. Right. And and it really is, to your point, Jennifer, what it's going to integrate in your organization. What is the one that for whatever you're doing, it could be construction, it could be, swizzle stick making, I don't know, but find the tools that are right for your organization, but they have to be the ones that you will use. If it's Salesforce, awesome. Just make sure you're using it. Too many people and too many companies that we work with will buy the latest cool thing, and don't get the latest cool thing, get the thing that you'll use. That's what matters. And then get everybody using it, making use out of the tool to connect with new customers, to keep them, to build drip campaign systems. If it's HubSpot, whatever it is, make sure you're using them to the utmost so that you get the return from it. I don't think there's, any one perfect technology solution for anything. Again, it goes back to what's it matter to the organization, what will help you as an organization and your team grow and stay connected to your customers in the best way possible.
Awesome. All right. As we close, I want to ask the last question. Can you recommend your favorite books for motivation and inspiration? Anybody ready with one? JT?
I'm ready.
Mark, go ahead. I have to write mine down.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't write mine down, but I got it. Jennifer will love it too, which is Dare to Lead, Brene Brown. I just, especially in these times, I think as leaders, having the courage to be vulnerable and lead from both your head and your heart. And, Dare to Lead is just one of those, I think, books. If you haven't read it, go get it right now and read it. As a leader, you got to have it.
Yeah, totally agree. JT?
The most exciting business book I've ever read is Shoe Dog, the biography of Phil Knight from the founder of Nike. It's brilliant. There's an HBO series that's called The Defiant Ones, and it's about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, right? A couple of music producers who came together, and you would think that the whole thing is about them producing music, this iconic music, which is awesome, and that's why I loved it. Come to find out, the entire show is about how they came together to form Beats by Dre and sell it for $1 billion to Apple, right? It is, make no mistake, it's a business lesson. And if you watch that, there's a lot of coarse language. If you can get over that, I loved it. If you watch that, you will, as a business owner, you will jump out of bed and run into whatever you do, ready to kick ass so hard. It is so exciting. Gotta watch The Defiant Ones.
All right, I have two. One is incredibly practical. I'll plug this one again. So Lucy is Sherry, right? And what she did from an inspirational standpoint is, it's just such practical application here. If you can take this and implement this in your organization. She said, I'm Lucy, I'm not the CEO. So the day, anytime an employee wanted to take her out to lunch or to dinner or whatever, to ask her a question or push on something that they disagreed with, they didn't have to ask the CEO to lunch. They asked Lucy, their friend, to lunch to talk about it. And so it brought a lot of walls down. And it turned into meeting potential fiancés or entire departments taking her out and grilling her over things that were changing with a new manager that came in. And it was incredible. So that's very practical, right? And then I'm going to go on the other side, with Dare to Lead and go with the woo-woo inspirational book. Yeah. So I'm thinking Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. It's about living beyond fear and pursuing life that is driven through curiosity instead of fear. So not necessarily creative, being in the arts, but how do you get creative with curiosity rather than fear? So those are the two that I'll leave you with. Any closing thoughts, JT or Mark?
I'm glad that question came up. And I think that especially now, COVID and all the stress and everything that's going to be the hangover of COVID, for your people, for you as business leaders, for us as coaches, whatever, we must be able to conjure up inspiration, motivation, and excitement. And if we have to go read a book to get it, then fine. If we have to go listen to a podcast or watch something on HBO, we had better make that a part of our routine, because people are looking to us as coaches and you guys as leaders. The best thing we can do for our teams is inspire them every day. And so if you're running short on inspiration, go fill your head up with books and stuff. You'll have stuff to dwell on. It'll pay off.
And I think as a last little tidbit, kind of in line with that, we had our Petra Academy a few weeks ago. We're all together, and Andy shared with us, a Pat Riley saying that excellence is the gradual result of always striving to do better. And I think that's really, it's not about big, huge things. It's about taking small steps, one step every day. It's just the gradual result. And that's important for us to remember as leaders, is we don't have to go, have all the answers, do it all perfect, big, grandiose, things. It's about a consistency, being there, supportive, all of those things, and gradually getting to the result gets us to a better place.
Yeah, I think some themes for today were about, flexibility, right? Flexibility continued to come up, and that requires a mindset shift. And we talked about that a lot today too. We cannot stay rigid. We have to be open-minded and be willing to shift. And that's what we do at the core of Petra. We are a mind shift company, and we help organizations see things differently. So if you are looking for someone to coach your organization, to help you through, at these uncertain next few years, if your business is booming and you really need somebody to help you grow that, not recklessly, but within some guardrails, we can help. And so check out petracoach.com. We have a lot of resources there and some upcoming webinars. And as always, you can join us on Petra, the Coaches Corner on our Petra Coach Facebook page, or sign up on the website as well. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Yeah.
Perfect, JT.
Go